Good evening, Mayor Molche, council members, Mr. Ramirez. My name is Rudy Gonzales, and I'm the Principal Manager for Southern California Edison. It was my hope today to have Andrew Thomas, who is my replacement, join us. However, he has taken a trip out of town, and he won't be back until tomorrow. I've been covering the city of Camarillo for many, many years, and I've really enjoyed the relationship that I've had with you over the years. I got promoted recently, so I'll be overseeing the local public affairs organization for the Northwest region for Edison. So I'll still be around, not too far away, and I'm sure you all have my number, so please call me if I can ever be of assistance. Here we go. Just some numbers to start out the presentation. To deliver safe, reliable, and affordable power, we monitor and maintain a very large electricity system, 50,000 square miles service territory, 4,600 circuits, 16 of which are here in Camarillo, 1.4 million poles, 119,000 miles of transmission and distribution lines, and 730,000 transformers. Public safety is our _1 priority. We have a really close working relationship with local police, firefighters, and EMPs, and we provide training, electrical safety training to those organizations. There we go. So this past Friday evening, you should have all received in an email a summary of our wildfire mitigation plan submittal that we sent to the California Public Utilities Commission. We're obligated to send an update of that plan to the Public Utilities Commission each year. In that plan, I'll summarize some of the efforts that we've made in regards to wildfire mitigation. Last year, we installed about 1,500 miles of insulated wire, or what we refer to as cover conductor. What that does is it allows us to increase the threshold during wind events for when we have to implement the dreaded public safety power shutoffs. We have plans to do additional installation of our cover conductor, including some areas in Camarillo that I'll go over shortly. And what it does is it reduces the need for public safety power shutoffs. We focused on the 72 most impacted circuits over the past few years, and we identified a scope of work for each of those 72 circuits, again, some of which are here in Camarillo. And the intent is to reduce the scope, frequency, and duration of the PSPS events. We've enhanced our operational practices by inspecting all of our facilities, and we do so through on-the-ground inspections, drone inspections, and helicopter inspections. And we know that helicopters flying low in the community can cause anxiety, so we do our very best to try to communicate through different means when our helicopters are going to be in the area, because sure as they show up, we start getting phone calls. So we try to communicate to local public safety agencies and let them know that they're going to be in the area. We also remove trees that we consider to be hazardous, trees that we believe are likely to or probably could fall into our lines. We work with local communities and private property owners where those trees are located, and last year we removed over 3,400 of those trees. We've also increased our situational awareness by installing additional weather stations throughout our service territory. The weather stations give us very granular information around the weather conditions at a very localized area, and we factor that information in before we make the decision to implement the public safety power shutoffs. There are many factors that go into the decision to curtail power, including the local weather conditions. Before we actually even implement public safety power shutoffs, our technicians on the ground will actually go out with the handheld wind speed monitor and determine what the very local conditions are before we make the decision to curtail power. So it's one of those situations that we don't we don't take very lightly. We really do factor in a lot of conditions before we make that decision. We also partner with local public safety agencies, and some of you may have read the press release that we issued last year where Edison made an $18 million contribution to support quick reaction forces. These are helitankers, one each for Orange County, LA County, and Ventura County. So we've got a very close working relationship with the local fire districts. I'm not sure if it's public knowledge yet, but it's very likely that we'll continue the support to keep that helitanker here in Ventura County. And it's been something that's been utilized during the start of several local fires, and it's just a very effective way of fighting fires. The capacity of how much water that they can hold is significantly more than what the local fire department helicopters can achieve. So it's something that's very welcome in the communities, and it's been utilized on several local fires. We've also implemented a program where we provide critical care battery backup systems to those customers in high fire risk areas who have been subject to public safety power shutoffs and who meet the income qualifications. These are battery systems with a 200-watt solar panel attached to it that will charge it during the day, and it's something that we want to publicize. So if we provide a link to city staff, we hope that you would include that in your city website. We want to try to get more folks involved in that program. Again, they need to be income qualified, they need to live in a high fire threat area, and then they also need to have been impacted by public safety power shutoffs. So I'm going to refer to some of the maps that you have in front of you around some of the circuit improvements that we're doing in the local area. And I'll start with the Esteban circuit, which I'm sure that you're all very familiar with. When we first started implementing public safety power shutoffs, we received a lot of feedback from folks who were served on this circuit. And it took us a little while to figure out a workaround to try to keep the underground portion of that circuit up and running, which we did. And in addition to that workaround, and this is the area around Sterling Hills, Las Posas golf courses, significantly impacted when we first started implementing the program. We are going to install about 13 miles of covered conductor on that circuit. So while we've completed the workaround, there's also portions of that circuit that are in a more rural area that are subject to the high winds and the possibility of debris flowing into the lines. So we're going to install covered conductor, and we're also going to add switching capabilities so that we can segment that circuit to keep more folks up with power. So again, you can look at the map that I showed you so you can kind of see the area in question. The Rosa circuit, we're going to install about 4 miles of covered conductor, and we're also going to add additional switching capabilities on that circuit. And again, the intent is to minimize the need for public safety power shutoff and to provide flexibility in our circuitry so that we can reroute power and keep power up to as many customers as possible. On the Donlin circuit, we're going to install about 4 miles of covered conductor, and again, we're going to add additional switching capabilities. The Flynn circuit, which is more in town, it's going to have about 1.5 miles of covered conductor installed, and we're going to also add switches there. And then the Seminary circuit, we're going to have about 800 feet of covered conductor installed there. And again, the intent is to minimize the need for, the duration, and the customer minutes of interruption if and when we have to implement a public safety power shutoff. And again, these 5 circuits are part of 16 circuits that serve the city of Camarillo. So in regards to reliability in Camarillo, we measure it by minutes of sustained interruptions. These are customer minutes of interruption. Prior to the Woolsey fire, the Camarillo average minutes of sustained interruptions was about 100 minutes. That's 100 minutes per customer per year. Our system average was about 137 minutes. So we were ahead of pace in regards to keeping the lights on here in Camarillo compared to the entire system. Following the Woolsey fire, when we started implementing the public safety power shutoffs, we went in the wrong direction. When we started implementing public safety power shutoffs, the Camarillo average minutes of interruptions per customer was about 402 minutes, and the Edison system average was 178 minutes, so well above the system average. Following the initial public safety power shutoffs on the Esteban circuit, we completed that initial work to do a workaround around having to have the entire circuit out of power. And in 2020, post-initial work on the Esteban circuit, the Camarillo average was 97 minutes, and the Edison system average was 201 minutes. So we're back on track in regards to providing better reliability to the community. The 2021 numbers are not yet available. When they are, they'll be sent to city staff, but it's our expectation that the numbers will continue to trend in the right direction. I'm going to move into customer rate options and assistance. We understand that our rates continue to go up, and we know that that creates challenges for many of our customers. So we have various customer assistance programs that provide assistance to residents who are struggling to pay their electric bill. We have an energy assistance fund that will provide a one-time credit of $100 for individuals who make that request. If they live in an all-electric home, which I know many homes in Camarillo are all-electric, it'll provide up to $200 of assistance. We also have debt forgiveness for qualified residential customers enrolled in CARE, the Customer Assistance Rate Program, or the FARA programs. Customers who are eligible for energy-efficient appliances at no charge or minimal charge. We want to make sure that customers monitor their electric usage, so there's several ways they can do that. They can go online and establish an account through mysce.com, and they can monitor their usage. They can get alerts if they're tracking high on their electric usage, and they can then alter their usage to stay on track with whatever amount they've budgeted. Customers can also request payment extensions. The phone number that's provided there is 800-950-2356 for those customers who have been impacted by COVID and any other hardship, can call and ask for payment extensions, and we can set up a payment plan to make it more affordable for customers to be able to pay their bills. And then there's a rate comparison tool that's on our website, and you'll see the website there, www.sce.com/rate plan tool. As we transition into what we refer to as time of use rates, people can go onto the website and assess which plan is best for their historical usage. So I'll get into that detail in just a moment. We also have, again, customer resiliency programs. I mentioned the Critical Care Backup Battery program. Again, the qualifications are medical baseline, high fare risk area, and enrolled in an income qualified program. We have rebates through the marketplace.sce.com that provide $50 to $75 rebates for small portable power backup systems. And then we also have larger rebates for portable generators. Those are all on the website. And then we have a program for those customers who want to go a step beyond, a self-generation incentive program that covers the majority of costs associated with self-generating energy storage systems, which are typically battery backup systems. So you'll see the website there to get additional information on that program. And I mentioned that customers are transitioning to our time of use rates. The CPUC in 2018, in an effort to simplify rates and encourage conservation, implemented time of use plans for customers. As you can see on the website, there's different plans, plans that allow you to use lower cost energy around the peak usage periods. And as I've mentioned to you in the past, the peak usage periods have shifted over the years. It used to be middle of the day into the early evening. Well, now the peak usage periods are in the early evening through around 8 to 9 o'clock. So if you're on a time of use plan, you want to avoid those time frames and use your high usage appliances early in the day or later in the evening. So there's information on our websites regarding the various time of use rates, different plans, and I encourage you to, again, utilize the rate comparison tool to determine which of the time of use rates is best for your historical usage. And then I've also mentioned that SCE offers income qualified rate plans for customers who meet the income qualifications. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions? Tony?
Thanks very much. Rudy, thanks, and it's really nice to see you. I know it's not been 27 years, but it kind of feels like 27 years, doesn't it, with this pandemic? Congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
And I had a series of questions for you, and the first series of questions are on the circuit maps that you gave us, and I'm just trying to make sure that I interpret them correctly.
Okay.
So, for example, on the Esteban map, circuit map,
Yes.
that has a different legend than the other 4 circuit maps. They are not referred to, the segments in that legend are not referred to as PSPS segments. Are those actually PSPS segments?
They are, yes.
Okay, so it's just typographical, or it's just omitted.
That's correct.
So from a practical standpoint, so let's take the ones that are to the south, closest to Las Posas Road. Those are in yellow.
Yellow. That's
right.
That's the segment of the circuit that we had turned off that created a lot of feedback from the community, and that's the segment that we were able to isolate from the rest of the circuit. That's all primarily underground, so we were able to isolate that portion of the circuit from the overhead, and that allowed us to reduce the number of minutes of interruption from one year to the next.
Okay, great. So if, for example, I was going to use the term consternation, but in any event, good choice of words. If, for example, there is a power safety shutoff in a different segment of the same circuit,
Yes.
you could still isolate, like let's say, for example, in the lilac-covered area of that circuit, you could, there was a shutoff, you could still isolate and keep the power on in the yellow shaded area of the circuit. I'm sorry, folks at home
That's
can't
correct,
follow
yes.
this, but,
Yeah.
okay.
And by the way, all these maps are available on SCE.com/maps. They're listed by county, and so if you know the name of the circuit, you can go to that circuit and pull up the map that we're referring to.
Okay, and then, for example, staying with this, like on the Rosa Circuit, which is dear to my heart because I live in that area,
Yes.
those are actually 2 different segments. So just because there's a green and a, I don't know, lilac? I don't know, I'm color challenged, but, so if the green circuit is, if there is a power safety shutoff, it doesn't necessarily follow that the lilac would be shut off. In other words,
Correct. Yeah, we're going to do whatever we can to try to keep as much of the circuit up and running as possible, and that's where the added switching capabilities come into play.
okay, all right, that's great, thanks. Second thing is, we've received a lot of, well, I'll call it consternation in terms of folks' electrical bills going up. What would you describe as the chief causes of those electricity rates going up? Would they be related to, well, no, I'm not going to presuppose the answer.
Yeah.
Let me ask you the question.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with wildfire mitigation. So, we're in a different age than we were 10 years ago. We're investing a lot in regards to grid hardening, the installation of the insulated wire, fire-resistant poles, That's the major cause for rate increases. And then also, we're transitioning to a green power. We have a document called Pathway 2045, which is our vision of how the state can achieve its 2045 greenhouse gas emission goals. And part of that is decarbonizing the electric utility industry altogether. So our plan is that by 2045, we won't have any natural gas fueled electricity serving the state. It'll all be renewable power. In addition to that, we're going to be implementing plans to install charging stations for the electrification of transportation. That is far behind the curve from our perspective in terms of the number of electric vehicles that need to be on the road for us to be able to achieve those greenhouse gas emission goals. And the only way that we'll get the number of electric vehicles on the road that we expect to need to meet those goals is by having the infrastructure in place. We have a lot of resources and a lot of programs going towards installing electric vehicle charging stations. We have a Charge Ready 2 program, which is an upgrade from our Charge Ready program that provides a lot more flexibility in the program. The first rollout of that program required that there be, I think, a minimum of 10 charging stations at a facility. Now it's much less than that. So apartment complexes or small shopping centers can have just one or two. But that's another reason for rates going up is, we have to transition to this new electric green power system.
Unfortunately, for example, on the Charge Ready program,
Yeah.
we're familiar with that because we've discussed that recently here at the council level. So if someone's bill has gone up, and I'm going to use arbitrary figures, $100 a month, over the course of the last 6 months, or $150. I'm not sure this question is fair, but what percentage would you ascribe to the wildfire mitigation and infrastructure and grid hardening as opposed to the increased costs of energy? Is there a way to, I'm not sure that's a fair question, but is there a way to?
We have a whole department that works on rate design and pricing. I'm sure I can get the answer for you. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to chase that down for you. It is a significant portion of the rate increases that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years.
I can only speculate on it, but I would think it's a very substantial portion, particularly in light of, and I'm not asking to go back on the slide, but the slide, the PowerPoint slides do tell a story about the significant amount of grid hardening that Edison has engaged in.
Right.
And to me, that obviously costs a lot of money from a delivery standpoint. So I would be really curious to know that if we can.
I'd be happy to chase that for you.
Just so we can sort of say, I can say to residents, okay, look, here's what's happening, here's relative to your rate increases. The final thing I wanted to add, and again, thanks for being here.
Sure.
The final thing I wanted is the recent sheet that I think all of us got and most city residents got from both Edison and CPA on how your rate plan is changing, and it goes to the time of use versus the tiered rate, that was up on the PowerPoint.
If I can bring up to that.
Oh, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, sure, that'd be great. And so the TOU rate plans, based on how much and when you use energy. There is a clause at the very bottom on, and I'm specifically asking for your assistance on this. In my district, is a 55-plus community with over 2,100 homes that have, among other things, electric heat pumps. And they're electric. And the TOUD prime may be a better rate plan for them if they have one of the following. And I would ask if we could, you and I could find a way then to reach out, and this is Leisure Village.
Sure.
Off Santa Rosa Road, and provide them with specific, follow-up information to this TOUD prime. Would you be willing to help out in terms of making sure that they understand that is an option for them.
Absolutely. Over the years, I've done several presentations at Leisure Village.
I know you have.
They're great to work with, very good
I
to
know,
work with.
and I was asked this question specifically yesterday during a monthly outreach meeting. So I would really, if you and I could, I think I've got your number, but if not, if you could give it to Greg or Carmen, and I'll get back with you.
I believe I'm on Greg's speed dial right now.
I have no doubt. So, okay. Rudy, thanks very much
My pleasure.
for being here.
Other questions? Kevin?
Thanks for being here, Rudy. I just have 3 questions. First, when a transformer, well, first of all, when you cover, you're going to spend, you have spent a lot of money on covering these transformers. I'll call it the transformers covering, for lack of a better terminology. But, what's the benefit for Edison for doing that, to cover, their infrastructure here? What's the benefit for doing that?
Are you talking about the insulated wire?
Yes.
So the benefit is, it's for our customers. It's going to allow the decision-making that we factor into before we pull the plug to implement PSPS. It's going to increase the threshold for the wind speeds. So let's just for discussion's sake, we monitor the weather. The wind speeds are, say, 45 miles an hour. For bare wire, the risk is higher because a tree branch or something coming in contact with that bare wire could create an arc or a spark, or it could land across 2 lines and, create an explosion. So with insulated wire, we could maybe not have to implement PSPS until we get to 55 or 60 miles an hour. So what that does is it increases the wind speed threshold before we have to implement public safety power shutoff. So the benefit is to the residents. So the question we get asked a lot is, why not just bury the lines? Well, we can do a lot more cover conductor installation than we can with underground the lines. I mean, it's about 1/10 of the cost. So from our perspective, it's a more economic and more efficient way of reducing the need for public safety power shutoffs.
Okay. And the second question I have still seems to be somewhat of an issue of I'll just call it the grid. It's kind of where Las Posas and Arneal and Ponderosa, and it's usually a transformer blows. And so if that's the case, and I know you put in a lot of assets over the years, it didn't just happened yesterday, it's been going on for several years. But what's the turnaround time when a transformer does blow, as far as getting it back up to where you can power it up?
A lot of factors that determine that. The time of the day that it happens. If it happens after 3:30 and all our crews have gone home, we've got round the clock what we call trouble men. They're the field technicians that are the first responders. They're around the clock. So if we have an explosion or a transformer failure, they'll respond right away, and they'll assess the situation. They will isolate the area out to the smallest area possible based on the location of that transformer, and then they'll start the process of notifying the crews so they can get a repair crew out. If it happens during the day and we've got crews available out and about, they'll be able to get there much sooner. But if it's after hours, we've got to call out a crew from home, and it takes a while for them to assemble the equipment necessary to do the transformer replacement. So a lot of it depends on the time of day, the location also. If it's a nice quiet street and we can get in there, no problem. If we have to set up traffic control on a major thoroughfare, that'll impact how much time it takes to start the work. So we respond as quickly as we can. We know that it's a major inconvenience for customers to be out of power for any period of time, let alone an extended period.
And when it does happen, Rudy, I get, a certain amount of, questions about, hey, when's it going to be back on? And I tell them to make sure that they have their cell phone numbers on file so they can get the text from SCE, which helps me. So maybe publicly you might want to tell people how to do that, because I found that that's been very helpful.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that customers can receive notifications. So they can go onto their My SCE account, and they can sign up for alerts, sign up for not only PSPS alerts, but also any type of outage alert. We also have a mobile app that you can download that will, if you click on it and you type in your city or your zip code, it'll show a map with all the outages that are taking place in that area, and it's a little triangle with an exclamation point in the middle. If you click on that, it'll provide you the status of that outage. So, we're not going to have information within the first 30 to 40 minutes because it takes us time to respond to an equipment failure. But after about an hour, there should at least be information about the location of the outage, how many customers are out, and then an ETA as to when the power will be brought back up. So that's the phone app that anybody can download to their phone.
Okay, and last, I want to congratulate you on your promotion, well-deserved.
Appreciate that.
And since you're here, Rudy, do you think, well, I kind of know the answer to this, but, we're going to go green, and there's going to be a lot of demands on electricity. In your humble opinion, do you think that your company is going to be able to provide enough electricity to power up all the vehicles and everything else that is going to go, in this, green environment in the future?
I have no doubt that we'll be able to meet that demand, yes. And we're doing a lot locally to make that transition. Some of you may be familiar with the battery energy storage system that was installed off of Vineyard Avenue on Beatty Street, little side street off of Vineyard Avenue in the Oxnard area. At the end of that street, there's a 100 megawatt battery energy storage system. People driving by probably don't even know it's there, but then right behind it is a large solar field that will charge those batteries so that when the demand grows in the afternoon, evening hours, the batteries can be discharged. So we're already starting a lot of that. Part of what we're doing is working with third-party developers. Edison has been out of the generation business for quite some time now, so we are the purchasers of the power, as is the Clean Power Alliance. So we're all chasing the same megawatts to try to make sure we have enough electricity to serve the demand.
Thanks. I don't know if everybody knows, but Rudy and I actually went to high school together, and I've known Rudy a long time. I just want to thank you for your honesty, your hard work, Rudy, and you've always been a straight shooter. Haven't always liked the answer, but you've always given me an answer, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ms. Santangelo?
Thank you. Thank you for your service to Camarillo for so many years. So I'm going to kind of take off where Mr. Tremblay started, talking about rates and sort of the reasons. And this might be putting you on the spot because this is really, and I have no problem with you having to come back with an answer. But I wonder if you could talk about when we see the rate changes, other things that affect them, like the PCIA, which is really technical and really hard to understand, and especially for us that are using CPA, understanding why, if you're a CPA customer, the changes in Edison rates may still affect you as well. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had a feeling the PCIA would come up, but the PCIA is the power charge indifference adjustment. And when the community choice aggregators were implemented, however many years ago they came on, the CPUC had to do an assessment and determine the existing utilities sign long-term contracts for electricity, right? So when you have a group of customers that decide mid-contract that they're going to leave and go get their electricity from another source, it unfortunately leaves those remaining with the electricity holding the bag for the power that we had secured on their behalf many years in advance. So the California Public Utilities Commission came up with the power charge indifference adjustment, and what it is, it's a rate applied to customers who choose to receive electric commodity service from third-party service providers, such as a community choice aggregator like Clean Power Alliance. To ensure those customers continue to pay their proportion of the above-market costs associated with resource commitments made by the utility on behalf of their departures, so on behalf of them prior to their departures. So it's just making sure that the customers who stay with Edison remain whole and don't carry that burden for the customers that choose to leave. The good news is that the PCIA for Clean Power Alliance is going to go down as a result of some of these contracts going off the books. So, our rates, we have a rate structure where we go into the California Public Utilities Commission every 3 years, and we do a forecast. We give them our best guess as to what all of our costs are going to be for that next 3-year cycle. It's called the GRC, General Rate Case Rate Cycle. So we're not always exact, and there are adjustments that take place during that 3-year period in between the rate cases. Those adjustments can be attributed to the change in fuel costs, higher than expected costs of construction material. So we have to go into the CPUC and justify any rate adjustment that we request in between the 3-year cycles. So that's why you see rates going up and down periodically. I know they don't go down enough, but they change in between those 3-year cycles. So, but everything has to be reviewed and authorized by the California Public Utilities Commission. We don't have the authority to create rates on our own. We have to get authority to do that.
Theoretically, PCIA should go down for CPA customers
Yes.
over time.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what's going to happen this year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big, I think, like 70% decrease.
I believe it is 7%,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, so that, okay. And then the other thing, you were talking about the time of use. Do you know if the time of use plans are equivalent to CPA time of use plans?
I don't know if they're comparable. I would imagine they've got to be very similar.
I believe they are, but I haven't looked at them side by side, so, okay.
Yeah, and again, I believe CPA customers can use the rate comparison tool online.
They can, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rudy, I got one question for you. I'm just going to start at the top. It comes back to the map.
Sure.
Namely the Esteban.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned the 13 miles of cover conductors
Right.
you were putting on it. It won't eliminate any potential PSPS, but it'll largely mitigate PSPS on Esteban?
Correct. So the yellow portion of the circuit, again, we've come up with a fix so that we can avoid having to take them off during a PSPS event. So the 13 miles of cover conductor is going to be installed in the more rural areas. And again, that'll increase the wind threshold speed before we consider shutting the power off. So it'll help.
Well, it'll largely mitigate any need to switch off that circuit and thus switch that portion of the Esteban, namely that's, like you said, Spanish Hills and Las
Yes.
Posas Estates, to other circuits then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, I wish I could say that it will eliminate the need for PSPS, but if the wind speeds are high enough, we may have to implement it. So
Is that 13 miles, does that pretty much constitute all the known threats that you guys have already identified?
So,
to the line?
we, after each PSPS event, we assess, which areas are most threatened, and then annually we do an assessment of all our circuits, particularly with the focus on the 72 most impacted circuits, and then we develop a scope of work with the intent of minimizing the need for PSPS on those circuits. So very targeted work that will hopefully minimize the need for PSPS.
Okay, thank you. Any other additional questions? No, all right. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.